Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So at this point, I've dropped all four of my division standing predictions: Metro, Atlantic, Central, Pacific. So now I have what my projected playoff bracket would be. So I thought it'd be a fun idea, instead of just saying I have this team winning the Stanley Cup, this team being the runner-up, we'd go through my potential projected bracket. And as you can see, I didn't realize that I made a matchup like the New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs, New Jersey Devils, Ottawa Senators. But I thought it'd be fun to go through all of these matchups. It's not going to be like when I did my playoff predictions right before the playoffs. Like, seriously break these down, have like a 20 to 25 minute video. We're going to go through these pretty quick, considering I don't have any actual stats on these teams, just what they did last year as well as their ads. So without further ado, we're going to start in the Eastern Conference. We're going to start with the New Jersey Devils versus the Ottawa Senators, arguably my second and third favorite teams in the NHL. This series would break my heart, but I would go with like the New Jersey Devils in 5 or 6 games. When looking at it, they have playoff experience, have won a series in 2023, and they're just a far more complete team. They have more star power. Ottawa fans would be perfectly fine even if they got swept, just the fact that they made the goddamn playoffs, so there's really not that much to talk about there. New York Rangers versus the Carolina Hurricanes. I'd go with the Rangers probably in 6 yet again. When looking at it last year, Carolina probably like outplayed them overall in the series. Shesterkin just absolutely balled out, but that was a Carolina team that had a lot more talent. So the New York Rangers, I think they're going to be ultra aggressive this season. Meanwhile, Carolina, it's going to be more so of a retool year. When looking at it, Nikki Shin coming over the following season, I think the New York Rangers would beat the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs. My Islanders versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm going to go with my Islanders in 7 games. I think they're more built for the playoffs, even though they have lost in the first round the last 2 years. I think that they would be able to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. And maybe just in my head, I'm just thinking that, like, mentally, I couldn't even imagine a Toronto Maple Leafs John Tavares win over the New York Islanders. So for my own mental sanity, and I think it actually would be a fantastic series, more so skill against more so grit and defensive play, I would go with the New York Islanders in 7 games. The Boston Bruins versus the Florida Panthers. Rematch of the last 2 playoffs when they met in the second round. In the first round, I would have Boston getting the edge in this series. Let's say it goes to 7 games. When looking at it, Boston bringing in guys like Lindholm and Zadorov, although I don't love the term on those deals, they're probably going to be a better team next season. Although they did lose Ullmark, that might hurt them in the regular season. I think that they are a team that is going to be built for the playoffs. Last year wasn't a ton of pressures. This year, I think with Sweeney and Montgomery, both of them, maybe not jobs on the line, but I think the Bruins are going to be ultra aggressive come deadline time. Florida Panthers no longer have a guy like Brandon Montour, lost some depth. I would go with the Boston Bruins. Moving on to the Western Conference, we have the Dallas Stars versus the Winnipeg Jets. Dallas is just the far better and deeper team as of right now heading into the season. I would go with the Dallas Stars in like 6 games, unless Connor Hellebuck really balled out, which he didn't last year in the playoffs. He has it since like their conference, actually since the bubble in 2020, not the bubble, the COVID shortened season in 2021. They definitely have a goalie advantage in that series, but outside of that, basically everything leans in the Dallas Stars' favor. Nashville Predators versus the Colorado Avalanche. Again, I had the Predators finishing with more points during the regular season, but I would go with the Colorado Avalanche. I wasn't that high in the Colorado Avalanche in the regular season. I think they might coast a little bit, and they're dealing with some injuries. Landeskog, Nichushkin in NHLPA right now. So when looking at it, if they are fully healthy, I think the Colorado Avalanche just have too much superstar power, and also they do have some depth with guys like Kovalenko coming over from Russia, Casey Middlestat, first full year in that system. I really like some of their pickups. Eric Brancham, I think, is going to be a steal on that third pair. It definitely would come down to Georgiev giving them serviceable goaltending, but if he did, I think the Colorado Avalanche would beat the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators went like nuclear all in at the deadline. Then maybe I would go with the Nashville Predators, but right now, rosters all considered, I think I would go with the Colorado Avalanche. Next up, Oilers versus the Minnesota Wild. I would go with the Edmonton Oilers in this situation. I think Minnesota is going to be a contender next season, after not like this upcoming next season after that, once they have that money off the books, but they're still a really cap-tight team, and they just don't have the most depth right now, considering some of their prospects are still coming up. And Edmonton is going to have cup or bust expectations, and their roster is just so much better than the Minnesota Wild. Next up, the last one of the first round, the Vancouver Canucks versus the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm actually going to go with Vegas on this one. I think Vancouver is probably the deeper team, but Vegas is the more experienced team. So when looking at that, I don't really have that much of an explanation for this, but I would have a hunch that Vegas would find a way. And they almost beat Dallas last year, who was a very damn good team. Although they are shallower, I would go with the Vegas Golden Knights in this series. Next up, Eastern second round, Devils versus the New York Rangers. Give me the Devils in 6 games. When looking at it, after the first 2 games of their 2023 series, the Devils really manhandled the Rangers around. I think they are a more skilled team. They are a faster team. And after adding some grit, that was kind of the one department where maybe the Rangers had them in. After adding guys like Brendan Dillon, Brett Pesce, and some other guys, I think they now have that grit to contend with the New York Rangers. Like the Carolina Hurricanes kind of bullied them around in that second round. I have the New Jersey Devils advancing to the second round. Boston Bruins versus the New York Islanders. This is where, if you're calling me biased, I think that the Islanders season would end here. I am going to go with the Boston Bruins. Both teams, very two-way physical teams, but I think the Boston Bruins just have a little bit more top-end skill. Obviously, David Pastrnak's so much better than any player on the New York Islanders. The goaltending is about equal in this series. I think Boston's forward depth, for the most part, is a little bit better than the Islanders. So give me the Boston Bruins in this series in 7 games. These two teams would absolutely beat the shit out of each other. Next up in the Western Conference, Dallas versus Colorado. I'm actually going to go with Colorado. I know you guys are probably saying, oh, he's either obviously going to pick Dallas to make at least the Western Conference Finals. He picked them to win the Stanley Cup last year after the trade deadline. I'm going to go with Colorado. I'm pretty high in Colorado. Again, I maybe underrated them come regular season, but if this team can stay healthy, if Nichushkin can stay off the drugs, I think that this team is not 2022 level. 2022, they were by far the best team in the entire NHL, but this is still a damn good team, and they have a lot to prove considering the fact that they've only won 1 playoff series in the last 2 years. I do not see Nathan MacKinnon going 3 straight years without making a Western Conference Final. So when looking at it, I have Colorado. Again, it comes down to Georgiev. Can he be half decent in this series? If he is, I could easily see the Colorado Avalanche making it back to the Western Conference Finals. The other West semi, Edmonton versus Vegas. Edmonton exercises some demons from 2023 and get it done versus the Vegas Golden Knights. They have more star power. They have definitely more forward depth. Defense core would definitely lean towards the Vegas Golden Knights. Goaltending is about a pick 'em. I'm a little bit higher on Stuart Skinner than others, but I just think the star power of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl would easily will them over the Vegas Golden Knights. Now we got our Eastern Conference Finals. Boston versus New Jersey. I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins. And I hated the picking the Boston Bruins in a way because I kind of trashed them all offseason. I didn't like the Lindholm. I didn't like the Zadorov kind of signings. And I'm not saying they're going to make it because they added those guys, but I think that this Boston Bruins team, considering they have not really had that deep of a playoff run since like 2019, they seem due in a way. And they really don't have any weaknesses. Goaltending is obviously shored up, assuming Jeremy Swayman's legit. I really like that goddamn defense core, and it is a playoff kind of defense core. And adding Lindholm gives them somewhat of a legit top 6. Do they have a true number 1 center? No, not at all. But they have the second best right wing in the entire NHL. That kind of makes up for that. So yeah, I think that this Boston Bruins team, after kind of 2 or 3 straight years of being very disappointing come playoff time, they turned it around. I could see their physicality kind of getting to the New Jersey Devils, and the New Jersey Devils going from being an 81-point team to making the Stanley Cup Finals seems a little bit bold. I'm not sure I can see that happening. Vegas Golden Knights, they just barely missed the playoffs in 2022, then won the Cup Final. So when looking at it, Boston Bruins to make the Stanley Cup Final, and they would be playing the Edmonton Oilers, who would beat the Colorado Avalanche, exercising even more demons from the 2022 Western Conference Finals. The star power is about equal in this series. The depth does lean although I like Colorado's depth, I think Colorado's depth is a little bit underrated. The depth would lean towards the Edmonton Oilers, on top of there's no goaltending advantage for the Colorado Avalanche. In fact, I would definitely pick Stuart Skinner, considering how lights out he was like game 4 through 7 of last year's playoffs, and outside of like the first 15 games of the season, I think that he's pretty solid. So I would go with the Edmonton Oilers to win in like 6 or 7 games over the Colorado Avalanche. And then we have an Edmonton versus Boston Stanley Cup Final, and maybe a little bit of a basic Stanley Cup pick. A lot of people are picking them, but I would go with the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. More star power, more high-powered offense. Although I really like Boston's defense core, this Edmonton forward core is just so goddamn scary, and they're able to generate a decent amount of offense from their blue line as well. Again, it's basic. I'm not going out on a limb. I think I'm kind of going out on a limb on the Boston Bruins making the Cup Final, as well as the Colorado Avalanche beating the Dallas Stars. But my Cup champion pick is a little basic. I picked the Edmonton Oilers to win back in 2023. Kind of gave up on them, but I'm back, considering the fact that they made Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and only added to this team, a team that I think is going to be one of the most prolific offensive teams that we have seen in recent memory. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this bracket. Last year, I think I predicted Colorado over New Jersey. So Boston Bruins, you better make the goddamn playoffs. You got to beat the M-Bod curse, considering the fact that New Jersey didn't even make the playoffs last year. But yeah, that's my bracket. I'll be seeing the next one.